Lore Together is proud to be part of the Boss Rush Games Network. Feel free to find out more at bossrushgames.com/network. Hi, I'm Safi.
And I'm Mystic.
And this is Lore Together. This is the podcast where a husband and wife team go over all the storytelling, world building, and characters in video games. Because it's what we like to do together. We lore together.
Yep, and it's episode 59.
Woohoo!
That's 59. Let's not get crazy.
Woo?
And I have no idea what this episode's about. But before we get into the episode, if you'd like to contact us, you can do that over on Twitter at Lore Together, on Instagram at Lore Together, or through email at loretogether@gmail.com. And if you'd like to support this podcast, you can do that over on patreon.com/loretogether, where you can pay a per episode pledge to get early access to episodes, access to Q&As, mini episodes, and other content.
Yeah, and something I like to mention every once in a while too is that if we're part of the Boss Rush Network. So if you're able to join us on the Boss Rush Discord, where you'll find Mystic and myself sometimes talking about what we're working on, or what we're listening to, or what we're playing.
Right.
And just a general all-around good gang of people. So just feel free to join us.
Yeah. And if you do like this podcast, we ask that you give us 5 stars wherever you are listening. It helps us a lot.
Thanks so much for the stars.
Thank you. On with the show.
All right. So Mystic asked me to do this episode because apparently after 8 episodes in a row, he was like, no.
You should have your shot.
No, I'm not even complaining. I'm just saying. I'm just making fun of you because I can.
So what are we doing? Or are you going to try to tease me?
Well, do you have any idea whatsoever?
Well, I know it's a game, and I know that there's images because out of the corner of my eye, I saw pictures moving when you were researching. Beyond that, I have no idea.
So you know it's not the Return of the Obra Dinn.
There are still pictures, but it doesn't have colors, so you're right. Or it doesn't have multiple colors.
Right. Okay.
Besides, we also did that one already.
We did. I'm not going to redo it. I'm not
going
to do the rewind version of that. So
I know it's not a text-based game. Not that I think you would dive into one of those.
Absolutely not. That's you. That's all you. All right. So you have no guess.
I have no guess.
Okay.
I am completely blind on this one. All I know is that you told someone what you're doing, and they said, that's a good game. That's not a lot to go on.
Yeah. No, it's not. All right. For this episode, I wanted to surprise Mystic with a game I loved in my youth, even though I have to admit I was no good at it whatsoever. It's one from back in the day with the first console my family ever owned, the Super Nintendo. However, we first fell in love with the game that we were able to play at Chuck E. Cheese as well, with an absurd world premise and a mix of stop-motion capture with live actors.
So now I'm going to guess Primal Rage.
Yes, that game was Primal Rage. So
yeah, I would not have guessed that.
I don't think you got a chance to understand how much we like. There was a phase where this was a game that we played for off and on, for a while with the Super NES. So for those of you who are not in the know, or possibly even younger than the game itself, Primal Rage was released in August of 1994. It was developed by Atari and originally released by Time Warner Interactive as an arcade cabinet. Over time, it was released to 3DO Interactive Multiplayer, 32X, Amiga, Atari Jaguar CD, Game Boy, Game Gear, MS-DOS, PlayStation, Sega Genesis, Sega Saturn, and, of course, the Super NES.
It's amazing how many games back then just came out on there's so many players in gaming. Like 3DO. I've never known a single person who owned a 3DO.
No, neither have I, ever. I don't even think. And we know some people who own some old stuff.
Yeah.
Like
Jaguar, never known anybody who owned that.
I think I knew of one person who owned that way back in the day as a kid. But, like, it was an adult who was into video games, and we weren't allowed to touch it.
And there was an MS-DOS port, really?
Yes.
I'm going to guess it probably wasn't very good, considering a lot of ports for PC back then weren't.
I would say probably the processing power was probably better than the Super NES.
So we're going to have to play this on an emulator, at the least, it sounds like.
Yes.
Okay.
That's my assumption.
Okay. That's a lot of consoles. Wow.
Yeah, I mean...
We're going to play the Game Boy version.
No, we're not. So it was almost anywhere you could want to play it back then. To me, it feels like that game that every gamer of the era remembers, but mostly only slightly. Unless you were super into that fighter genre at that moment, which there was a contingent of gamers where that was their jam. You wouldn't really be thinking about it that much. You might have, like, after 1994, you might have got in the bargain bin somewhere, and you're like, okay, cool, let me try this. Actually, this is kind of fun. So...
Yeah, I vaguely remember this series. There's two of them, right?
We're going to get into that.
Oh, okay.
Because there's a bit of a story behind that, too.
Oh.
There's the main game, which we're primarily talking about now. And it was, since it was around August of 1994, it was riding the scandalous violence trend from games like Mortal Kombat. But it didn't really get a proper sequel. So this episode is essentially my official pitch to bring it back to its campy, ridiculous glory. We will start out with the original premise to explain the entire setting. Some may remember a couple of frames with pixel art that were displayed before playing the game, but I would rather quote from the first page of Comic 1 of Primal Rage I found online.
There's a comic? Okay.
Yes.
All right.
Yes, the comic was written by Chris Knowles, who apparently also did like a Halo series?
Huh.
Around the same time that this came out, the Primal Rage comic came out, and then was drawn by Kevin Rassel, who I don't think is as well known. So
this comic is, if he did a Halo thing around the same time, this comic came out years after the franchise was pretty much dead.
No. Actually, it came out in 1996.
My impression might be that Halo is younger than it is.
Yeah, actually, so Christopher Knowles began his career in 1996, writing and drawing comics, particularly Halo and Angel's Story, a miniseries published by Sirius Entertainment.
Yeah, Halo feels like such a new series, but it's really not. Yeah.
It's not. Halo in particular was actually part of the transition over to more of a console type of play. We'll get into where Primal Rage actually fits in this timeline since it was released in 1994. But let's start with the intro of the first page of the comic, which I love so much. I'm going to read it dramatically, and I hope you forgive me. And on that terrible day of judgment, foretold by prophets throughout the ages, the Maker of all turned his frightful gaze to the world of man and beheld wickedness, greed, and disbelief. In his wrath, the Maker sent a fiery host, larger than the very sky itself. Tremor, fire, and dust consumed the world. The unfaithful perished, and the ways of the unrighteous fell away. The oceans rose, the world fell silent, and the sun was extinguished from the sky. Those spared the fury of the Allmaker fled to the caves of the earth and praised his goodness and mercy. And when the sun was reborn and the sky threw off its shroud, those saved from judgment emerged from the earth womb and beheld the terrible wages of unrighteousness. The once great villages of man lay shattered upon the plains.
So I'm laughing for two reasons. One is that is ridiculous.
Yes.
Two is this is like the Safi peeking section.
I'm sorry. I was channeling my innermost preacher voice.
Right, I can tell. You should have had a book in your hand.
I know, and I did not have a book in my hand, everybody. But those of you who are astute may realize this is an asteroid extinction event. The artwork and the other intro seen in the game suggest that multiple asteroids hit Earth, causing worldwide devastation and upheaval. A sliver of humanity survives and lives a new tribal lifestyle. There are two other things that happen after this event. The surprisingly less important thing is that the world is literally reshaped to look like the skull of a dinosaur shooting a flame out of its mouth. More importantly, this extinction event has awoken the gods of the old world, who now have come out to rule over this new version of Earth, now spelled URTH. That's right. Welcome to Earth.
This is so weird.
Isn't it? It's just so campy. I think that's why I love it. It's just unapologetically ridiculous. I don't even want to call it dumb. There's definitely some thought put into this, but it is unapologetically a fantastical premise.
I'm caught in this weird point where it's like we're doing an episode on this, and I'm amazed that we're able to do an episode on this. This, like, Primal Rage in my mind would have been one of those things of there's a paragraph of lore total.
Right.
And
no, they put a lot of thought into this. They really did. Like, I'm really surprised. I thought I was going to have to do another game with this. You know,
like a twofer like we did with...
like 2 games from my youth that I played on the
right.
SNES. Like, I thought that was going to be what I was going to do. And instead, I was able to get a whole episode worth of content for this game alone. They put a lot of, like, heart and soul into it, even though it's absolutely campy. Completely camp.
Okay, so the gods of the old world have awoken.
Yes. Remember in school when you were told that 65 million years ago that dinosaurs were hit by a meteor that caused an extinction event? Nope. This was actually caused by Balsaphas, a wizard from a parallel dimension that saw the threat that the powerful gods of Earth would be to the galaxy.
What's that name?
Balsaphas. Balsafas. Balsaphas.
I hate it. I don't like it.
I'm assuming when he went to school, they nicknamed him Sassafras, but you know.
I don't like it.
See, now you know how I feel about names.
It's like someone saw Balthazar and it's like, we can't do that. Make it a little different.
Yeah.
Like,
so you see, he saw that there were these powerful gods duking it out on Earth while life flourished and apparently civilizations emerged. The instruction booklet does concede that, yes, there were dinosaurs, but I'm assuming these civilizations were either super hidden or extremely primitive. Regardless, Balsaphas was feeling so threatened from another dimension that he banished one god to a tomb in the center of the moon. The disturbance of balance of power that then caused a huge explosion is the true cause of extinction event number 1 on Earth. The gods were sent into suspended animation and lay in wait until we got asteroid extinction event number 2, which is also known as the Cataclysm, what begins the game.
The science fan in me is cringing at...
Well, leave that to the wayside.
At the fact that number 1 is the dinosaurs and not like the KT or...
As much as I am like a stickler for the social science, when it comes to you going to the game, you're going to have to...
I'm willing to let it go. It's just so weird. Okay.
So the Cataclysm apparently jostled the world enough to wake up the gods, who, according to the instruction book, are quote unquote angry.
They got woken up in the middle of a REM cycle, like.
Hence, the rage.
So my head is going to that meme of the guy who's just like bleary-eyed waking up in bed and just like it's a dinosaur.
I imagine you're actually that blinking gif of the guy who's like blinking like, I'm sorry, what? Excuse me? Can I see that again?
It's okay.
Now,
my head is just still trying to like grasp the absurdity of all of this.
It's just absurd. You have to embrace the absurdity of it all.
I think the interesting thing here for me in this episode in particular is I knew you were doing The Sims, right?
Yes.
I know Dragon Age and Fallout probably as well as you do in the broad strokes. And
the broad
and then you
strokes,
do the detail dive for the episode.
Yeah.
And then it's just to be completely blindsided for the first time this whole series, like the entire podcast,
Yes.
you've never blindsided me, but like to be completely blindsided, I'm kind of just
Now
stuck.
you know how it feels to be me, and you're like, why is she so excitable? This is why. Because you just throw this stuff onto me, and I have to react to it. And when you think about the video game, the video game, P.S., if you haven't played this video game is very fun. But
I just remember eating people when I played it, like way back when.
Yes, you would regain health if you ate some of the followers that happened to come out in the middle of the battlefield. Like, no survival instincts, whatever. but like, this is genuinely how it usually feels with me in the seat. So, Mystic, you're just gonna have to cope with this.
I can deal. It's
Okay.
just Balsafras? Like
Balsafras, yes. No, not
Balsafas. What was it again?
Balsafas. You were adding an R because of sassafras. It's Balsafas. Now, not all these gods are the same. There are good ones and the bad ones. And one guy who's listed as good but kind of just is another example of why living on a binary is inconvenient.
Oh, another god who is just the god of nobody cares.
I wish I had something as cool as the god as nobody cares in this setting, because I really honestly think that could fit, but no, we don't.
Okay.
Let's start with the good guys first. You first have Armadon, god of life, the upright standing amalgamation of a triceratops and an iguanodon. Well, at least for me, although the design documents early on refer to him as a tristegosauratops.
I'm just going to leave that alone.
Right. His realm is actually underground, where he is telepathically linked to the top side of Earth. In the comic series, his people are actually in charge of the forges for weapons for humanity. The battles over the top side apparently were agonizing for him, so when the chance arose, he went to the surface to protect life on the new Earth.
Okay.
Blizzard is the god of good, a large ape-like creature who was frozen for millennia in the heart of a glacier in the Himalayas. With climate change, we'd be seeing him any day now.
It's just so funny because I remember back in the day, you had Mortal Kombat, obviously, was the big one.
Yes.
When it came to the supernatural fighters. Obviously, Street Fighter was more quote, realistic, end quote.
Yes.
And every single game, you had Sub-Zero, you had Glacier in Killer Instinct, and you have... you just said the name and I can't remember.
Blizzard.
Blizzard! Like, you have these... Every single game had to have the elemental fighters. It's just...
Yeah, and he won't be the only one. A noble god with an animal spirit and much wisdom, he would only descend from the mountain range in order to protect the people under his charge. The artwork for him typically depicts him at a throne with worshippers surrounding him. The comic starts off with his tribe's leader, Taze, telling the story I read earlier of how Earth became URTH. In battles, he has a freeze breath special move.
Right. Yeah.
Last, we have Talon, who, when I was growing up, he was my favorite. He's the god of survival, and he's actually one of the gods that didn't get locked away. He apparently was living his best raptor life on a hidden island in the South Pacific with his wives and children. And he's a raptor with like a tiger stripe thing and a bit of a fringe on the hair. A bit.
Yeah, I really remember.
No feathers, though.
It's interesting how we have anthropomorphized the animal deity thing. Like, he's a raptor living with his wives and children.
Right.
I mean, it makes sense, but it just...
He's the most anthropomorphized in that sense of the idea of like family and obligation. So, hence I think why he's the god of survival. It's not just his survival, it's his family's survival, and it's his followers' survival.
Okay.
Yeah. When the cataclysm happened, his island became part of a bigger landmass, which Talon figured could jeopardize the sweet little paradise he had set up. He fights merely to defend his clan and family. Per the instruction booklet, he hunts humans for sport, but in the comic, his followers are vegetarians who hunt in order to feed Talon. At one point where he needs to restore his powers, some of his followers willingly sacrifice themselves as a feast in order to ensure that Talon is ready for the fight between good and evil.
Is there a disconnect between the comic book and the instruction manual then?
I think so, yeah. I definitely would say so, because the instruction book is a little bit more brutal with the way that it's characterizing them. But you have to understand that the instruction manual was made for people who were playing a game that was originally actually an arcade game.
Mm-hmm.
So it was kind of just giving a little bit of backstory. And this is back in the day where some gamers may not even remember this, but instruction booklets were your lore centers. For the people who were super into knowing the premise, you got to know more about your characters. And I mean, this is how we know stuff about Mario game characters that got expanded on and things like that.
And and of course, in the console space where we're talking about, for the most part here,
yes,
because you didn't take an instruction book for an arcade game home.
No.
You would have, at best, a 20-page manual, maybe 30.
Yeah, this
isn't like Elder Scrolls where you have literal books like the Pocket Guide to the Empire explaining everything.
I'll actually show you the PDF later, Mystic, but honestly, this instruction manual I think is about 10 to 12 pages with, in addition, at the end of it, a entry fee for Six Flags at the back.
So not much to go on.
No, not a lot to do.
I still would read the instruction manuals like on the way home and then like in the bathroom. Like
No, I read them for fun too, and this is one of the ones I remembered. That's part of the reason why I looked it up. I was like, I know there's something. I figured at least I'd get enough from the instruction manual, and then I found out there was so much more. So,
like when we found out there were Unreal books.
Right.
Which we have to read for our patrons. We have to start doing that.
We will start doing that. Talon is a fast character whose special moves are more based on kicks and quick attacks, including one called Brain Basher. Also, if you knew the code, when you killed an opponent, you could call in his children to devour the corpse of the monster he defeated. So a lot of them had these like finishing moves. Once you killed your opponent, they would render your character into skeleton or dust.
Oh, jeez.
And for Talon, basically, he'd be like, rawr! And then, like, it's a sea of, like, tiny little raptors who come, and then it's like something out of Lemmings, where they come and they chop, 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 and then your opponent is nothing but bones. Before I officially get to the bad guys, I'm going to talk about the closest we have to a quote-unquote true neutral god. Sauron is the god of hunger, a tall yellow Tyrannosaurus with purple markings. He's listed as a good guy, but in my opinion, he's not either, and the comics establish his reputation similarly. When he was awoken during the Cataclysm, he had to continue to feed in order to maintain his immortality, and just kept devouring flesh. He's so single-minded in his focus that he doesn't even protect or help the humans who worship him. In fact, in the comic, on their way to the big fight at the end, one of his followers gets eaten by a god not featured in the main game called Slashfang. Sauron just lets this happen because, for him, the loss is mostly meaningless. He's got to eat, and that's more important than to make sure his followers don't get eaten, apparently.
Slashfang? Okay, so we have people who aren't even in the game.
The comic, so remember, the comic is 2 years later, and it's a premise to help build up excitement for something, which we'll get to.
Okay.
Yeah. In the game, Sauron's special move includes a scream and a cranium crusher. For the bad guys, let's start with the infamous Chaos, the god of decay. The booklet starts with him being described as the mightiest witch doctor on the first continent. This is actually turned into more of a scientist who's mutated in the comic books.
Okay.
With his tribe being fellow scientists who try to tend to him so he can win battles. Either way, something powerful he was working on backfired and turned him into a foul, disgusting beast. Quote unquote, forced to wallow in his own filth for eons.
Ew.
Yeah.
Ew.
When the cataclysm happened, Chaos prayed to the carrion god Thrashti. Side note, Thrashti makes no appearance. I do not see anything referencing Thrashti ever again. As far as I know, Thrashti is just in the instruction booklet.
Huh. Okay. It's the first mention of a
carrion god.
Like a god above the old gods.
Well, I think because this is the god that is a god from man. Like a god that used to be man. Yeah. Apparently, he was promised release once he fought and defeated all his enemies, and then will lead his tribe to a chance of greatness. Chaos was actually a great source of controversy for the game because some of his special moves. Since he is a wretched, foul beast, the team decided to give him moves like farting and puking.
Right, yeah. I remember way back when the Angry Video Game Nerd did a video about, I think it was the Atari Jaguar.
Yeah.
And he covered Primal Rage as part of that video.
Right.
And he was talking about the special moves, he couldn't do them, and he named off farting, puking, and pissing as...
Yes, that's the most ridiculous and offensive one of all. It was a finishing move. Once he killed an opponent, he would pee on them. The pee was apparently acidic and burned away their flesh, revealing their skeleton.
There were so many skeletonizing moves in all the fatality-based games back then.
Right, yeah. This actually caused some blowback, where some stores wouldn't even sell copies of the game for a week because a mother was extremely offended and insinuated this was related to golden showers. Kids, you don't need to know what a golden shower is. Just know you're not supposed to know what it is at all. I'm not explaining that.
Ask your parents.
Yeah, that's not what we're here for. The blowback was short-lived, and the game was able to maintain its teen rating. It was interesting because, essentially, it was a mom wreaked havoc in there. I forget which store it was, but it was a chain of stores who decided they weren't going to carry the game anymore. And literally, Atari was like, we'll resubmit it if you want us to for rating. And it got rated teen again. And then the store was like, okay, we'll put it back on the shelves, but only the versions that do the censoring.
Trying to think of like a place people would buy that was kind of unique to the era, you know, because like Walmart.
I don't know if it was Radio Shack or it wasn't Best Buy. It was.
I want to say
Best
like
Buy.
something like KB Toys or something.
No, it wasn't KB Toys.
No.
It
Toys R Us,
or it was not Funko Land. Because I would have remembered that. It was an electronics store. So
Circuit City.
I might have been Circuit City.
We are naming stores that just no longer exist now.
So many.
Bring back Funko Land. Bring back Funko Land.
Yeah, forget Amazon. We need Funko Land. Next evil god is Diablo. Would you believe he's pure evil with a name like that?
I'd also believe he's probably fire-based.
He is simply the god of evil.
Real? Really? Okay.
He's a Tyrannosaurus red character. Actually, he's a smaller red palette swap with Sauron. And he was originally imprisoned in a fiery place deep within Earth. He purely exists to torture the world for as long as possible. Once there is nothing left to torture, he plans to burn the whole thing down and only spare those who are just as evil as him. In the comic, he instigates the conflict by attacking Armadon's domain first. Of course, he breathed fire. How could he not?
Right.
He just did.
That's an interesting thing to put as your character's motivation of destroying everything except for the other people who are just as evil as you. Evil tends to devour itself.
It does. But I think it's kind of a manipulation thing. Like, I need you to sustain me, but at least you get along with me and you're pliable because I can manipulate you. Is the way I see it. Not that these monsters talk any kind of human language or anything, but they are intelligent, sentient beings who make
How do they
decisions.
communicate with their followers? Is it like a weird language, or is it telepathy, or what is it?
They just read. It just reads their cues. They just read the animal. You know how your dog feels. I feel like that's how these followers read these monsters.
All right, that would explain an awful lot about deities throughout all of human history if they were all animals.
They weren't all animals, but yeah.
I'm saying, like, never mind.
Yeah. Last in the evil gods, we have Vertigo, the only female god. She looks as if a king cobra had limbs and moved like a cat.
Very long neck.
Yes.
And I remember playing this and thinking Dilophosaurus, and I think it's because she spit.
She did spit venom, and she did have a bit of a crown thing that would flare out a bit. But she's just too long and tall to be completely based on that.
Fair.
problematically, she's the goddess of insanity. That's all I have to say about that. I'm not even going to get any further. It's just the way it is.
At least they, like, it's that weird time where you have the token female fighter in every game.
Yeah. Yeah. And, you know...
Like, Sonya was jammed into Mortal Kombat.
Right.
And Chun-Li, I think, was the only female fighter in the first Street Fighter.
Yes.
And then you have Vertigo in this, and yeah.
Yeah, and I get it.
I think Orchid was the only one in Killer Instinct, I think.
Possibly.
Yeah.
I don't know Killer Instinct that well.
Oh, we'll cover it sometime, I'm sure.
Yeah. I just say that because the idea of hysteria being linked to women, yada, yada, yada.
Yeah. No, that's why I sighed. I was like,
I was roommates with a women's studies person in college. There you go. That's all you got from me.
Yeah. The single female character also has to be the one that tied to insanity.
Yeah. It's
okay.
It's problematic, but that's all we have to say about it. I'm not going to harp on it because I still love the game. Vertigo apparently was from another dimension when she started to raise hell in the Mesozoic Wars. Apparently, no explanation of what that is, but it's referenced in the instruction book.
Kind of like, what was it? The 27...
God of Carrion?
No, I was going to say, like, last episode we had the 27 slave something. It's just like...
Yeah.
What is that? I have no idea.
Right. When that wizard, Valsifas, decided he was going to meddle with Earth's progress, he trapped Vertigo in the moon. She was there until the Cataclysm, which apparently weakened the wards around her, allowing her to wreak havoc once again. Her plan is to have hordes of enslaved humans build her a multidimensional palace, which, to be honest, is probably the most relatable goal of all the gods here.
Yeah.
Well, outside of Sauron, if you're feeling famished, but you know.
Yeah, want to eat a lot.
Yeah. I'm Sauron when I'm at a buffet, but I'm Vertigo when I'm at work, I guess. I don't know. She was my second favorite character to play, but I never could nail down her special moves, which included teleportation, spitting venom, like you mentioned, Mystic, and putting your opponent in a brief trance so you could go crazy on them.
I remember playing the few times I did play this. I remember always picking Vertigo because, again, I didn't even know that Vertigo was female. She just looked different from the other ones.
She looked very different.
Yeah.
She and Talon, I think, are the biggest departure from the other ones, because the other ones are just big hulking dinosaur archetypes, or basically a different version of Kong.
Right.
So, she was pretty unique, and Talon was the only raptor, and I loved raptors.
Yeah,
so.
But we've had like two characters that are palette swaps of each other.
Yeah. So you have 4 characters. Yeah, like that. Since this is a fighter game, there isn't a story necessarily to follow when you play, but we do have the short-lived comic series to guide us with a premise and a story. Essentially, Blizzard was keeping an eye on things with his followers when they get the sense that something is not right. They're able to spy on what's happening with Armadon's underground lair. So Taze, the guy who did the big intro before, he kind of has this seeing power that a lot of the shaman-type positions in these tribes have. And it turns out Diablo has challenged him. They fight, and through what is described as a deceitful move, Diablo wins. Armadon's followers either retreat, are enslaved, or eaten. Taze warns who he can and plans to help Armadon and his people regain their land. The first comic ends with Diablo heading to Sauron's domain. By comic 2, we see Sauron's people aren't intimidated yet by Diablo's presence. In fact, Sauron's followers put up a big fight and kill almost all of Diablo's followers. Unfortunately for them, Sauron was bested. Some do end up joining Diablo and leaving with him. So basically, Diablo lost a bunch of followers because they all were bad at fighting, but he gains these strong warriors that have like, well, I guess Sauron left and he's not as strong as Diablo,
right.
So we'll follow Diablo. Meanwhile, Taze reaches out to Armadon's leader, Modron, to help him and his people recuperate and get ready for the coming battles. In fact, Armadon's people end up gaining the upper hand and regain his domain back because Diablo's followers are sloppy drunks.
But they were such... Okay.
Yeah.
But they were such good fighters before.
No, Sauron's guys were good fighters.
Right, but he got a bunch of them.
Now, they're not the ones that were partying in Armadon's lair that they took over.
Sorry, yeah, fair, okay.
Yeah. Diablo then reaches out to Vertigo to obtain her allegiance to him, but because Vertigo's head priestess Hexia is a smooth negotiator, it's set up as a mutual alliance. Essentially, Diablo's like, I'm so powerful, don't you want to follow me? And, like, Diablo's head dude is trying to barter with Hexia, and first Hexia is like, hey, don't you wanna hook up? And he's like, be gone, that's not what I want. And then she goes, well, fine. Obviously, you're going to actually negotiate, which means I have to tell it to you real. There's a reason you're here, and the reason you're here is because you're not as strong as you thought you were, and you need Vertigo's magic. So you're going to have to deal with the fact that we're equals. That's essentially it. That's a very brief synopsis of that.
All right.
And that is the end of comic 2. With that, they set to go attack Talon. And unfortunately, the evil magic of Vertigo bests Talon despite his followers having the upper hand on Vertigo's zombie-like subjects. One of Talon's followers, Oaxaca, flees. They get deep into the forest and see Diablo, realizing his alliance with Vertigo. By the luck of, quote-unquote, this is where the plot needs to go, Oaxaca finds Taze with Madrid. Next,
convenient.
Yeah. Next, Blizzard and his people need to punish Chaos and his tribe of mad scientists because they're doing a heresy.
Doing a blank is going to be a line of shirts from us eventually.
Blizzard sees Chaos, goes berserk, and barely gives him a chance to hit before bashing him into being a tiny little human. Like, literally in the comic, Chaos reverts back to his human form out of nowhere. Blizzard's people decide to leave him alone, and Taze realizes Diablo and Vertigo are now the sacred fighting grounds, which makes Vertigo's magic stronger. Now, if you play the original video game, this sacred fighting ground is like literally the end boss is you fighting everybody else you've already fought before, and it is a basically boneyard backdrop. So it's all these skeletons of dinosaurs surrounding you in this barren wasteland-ish looking setup.
Okay. My brain flashed for a brief second there to when you said Chaos is punched down to human again, just flashed to the Rampage series.
Yes. Yeah, it could be referencing the Rampage series for all I know, which I think would be kind of funny. But not sure about
a series that. I don't think we'll ever be covering. I think that plot there is very thin.
And the remake apparently was not fun.
They made a movie off of Rampage, though, which is... I don't know.
Didn't that have Dwayne Johnson in it?
I believe so, yeah. That sounds familiar.
He's never met a disaster plot he didn't like, hasn't he? Like, that's just...
He'll lean into the campiness, I think, if it's something campy like that.
I mean, he's got the perfect smile for it, that's for sure. In the final comic, it's showdown time. Everyone is making their way to the battlegrounds, including wildcard Sauron and a still recovering Chaos. Chaos is apparently, like, barely there, just kind of in a daze. Talon and Armadon are here just to give some sort of magical or spiritual support to Blizzard, who's ready to punch Diablo's lights out. At first it seems to be a straightforward match between the two, when suddenly Sauron finds himself hungry and decides to snack on the warriors that betrayed him and that are now supporting Diablo.
Oh.
Basically, he was like, I could go for some popcorn, and it's literally right there, and I also have a grudge with that popcorn.
Bloody, bloody popcorn.
Yeah. Blizzard and Diablo duke it out, and at one point, it looks like Blizzard may be down for the count before he freezes Diablo in the face. Sauron is able to finish his snack to see Blizzard defeat Diablo with a bone-crushing punch. Good wins! The end!
Okay.
It's a 4-comic special.
Right.
So.
That's more story than I ever thought I'd get out of Primal Rage, so I'm curious to see what it was setting up that you've been teasing.
Yeah, well, did you know there were plans for a Primal Rage 2?
I thought there was a Primal Rage 2.
Not really. But kind of.
But not really.
But not really. But it's there, but not really. So this is what happened. When Atari was with Time Warner, they were set on doing a sequel where an evil god named Necronus, a dragon god that's half bones and muscle, and it's got like a skull and shoulders with bone wings. That god Necronus had banished the old monster gods, and in their place were avatars, the human fighters that embodied the gods' powers and would even transform into them for brief moments. So essentially, these avatars were humans that were selected by the gods. They were like, we've been banished, but we're going to imbue you with power so you can become big and strong and fight big and strong monsters. Yeah.
Why would you get rid of the one thing that makes the thing unique? Like, yes, they can turn into big whatever. Why don't you just have the big whatevers? Like,
so one YouTube series we really like is called What Happened by Matt McMuscles, which I watched for this. And he actually released an episode on this last year. And what happened was that the most popular characters were actually Chaos and Blizzard, the ones with the punching and the regular fighting stuff.
Yeah.
So they decided they didn't want to get rid of the monsters, but they also wanted to give people the option to fight regular fighting style characters that didn't deal with tails and bites and scratches.
See, now it just reminds me of the game series Bloody Roar, where it's a fighting game where you're humans, but you have like animal aspects that you can turn into for certain combos and stuff.
Oh, interesting. Yeah, it doesn't play quite like that. I'll have to show you what it looks like, but it was pretty cool. And they were still using stop motion animation, so they were using the same characters they created for the last game, and then they made new human versions of them. Plus then Necronus and Slashfang, which we'll get to in a moment. With what little info I have, I'm going to try to describe these avatars. So Tor was the Spike Club wielding avatar for Armadon with probably the most useful set of armor as well. It looks kind of like a general, torso and like Roman skirt covering kind of armor.
Okay.
Bright yellow, typically. Bald dude with a big spiked club. Blizzard was represented by katana-wielding Kaze, his dark hair in a ponytail and his stance of holding the sword over his head with one hand. So kind of like with the, with kind of like that Asian fusion like open vest.
Right. Okay.
And those in the pants with the boots.
So they gave him a sword and gave him
the pants with the boots. So descriptive, I know, but still.
So they gave him a sword and made him a little bit more like a ninja.
Little, but they, of course, nothing is a one-on-one comparison because these are humans in a dystopian tribal setting. Chaos's avatar is Shank, a man whose eyes are stark white, and it looks like there are tubes coming in and out of his head as he fights with a club. And he's kind of have like this dull gray kind of skin thing going on.
Okay, there's definitely a more unique look to these characters. Like the other one they're dinosaurs. This is like, okay, we put a little bit more thought into this.
I think they put a lot of thought into the dinosaurs too, but there's not the same palette swapping issue.
Well, what I mean by that is not to be racist, but all dinosaurs kind of look alike in the broad scheme of things.
That's a t-shirt. Not to be racist, but all dinosaurs look alike.
And when you get to a human level, you have a lot more easily identifiable differentiation just because we're used to seeing multiple types of humans. So.
Then there's Sinjin, who's the avatar for Diablo, with a huge axe and a mask face along with spikes on his helmet and shoulder pads. The premise for him was that his face, he gained immortality centuries ago, but his face was rotting off, so he was covering it.
Gotta get the total care package. You can't just get like 90%. This is why people call you about your face warranty all the time.
If nobody has learned that from Nuka-Cola Part 2.
You get the full care package.
Get the full care package. For Sauron, there was Conan-looking Eric, complete with a sword and a loincloth.
Oh. You said Conan looking, and my brain went to Conan O'Brien.
No.
And then you said loincloth. I'm like, wrong Conan.
Yeah, no, Conan the Barbarian. Look. Not Team Coco Conan. No.
I don't know why that's.
I don't know why you went there either. You don't even watch Conan O'Brien.
No, I don't.
What is
but that's
this?
literally my brain went first, and I'm like, that doesn't seem accurate.
What is? I don't understand. Talon was represented by Kina, who brandished claws as a weapon and had boots who were more cloth than the rest of her outfit. So you can imagine.
Right.
The thing that makes it weird is after I wrote the script, I watched what the end credits say for each character for that game. She's only 15. So it feels wrong on a lot of levels when you realize that.
Wait, Talon has the female avatar?
Has it, yeah, he has a female avatar. Now remember, he's a very family-focused character.
Right.
So I wouldn't be, and...
You think he'd know better than to have a 15-year-old that dressed? Like,
I don't know. Does he know the age of humans?
That's
He's
fair.
immortal. He doesn't know, like, 15, 45. What's the difference to
that's
him?
fair. Now, what's Vertigo? Does Vertigo... Did they increase the female representation?
Melissa was the avatar for Vertigo. With a long staff for magic and a big golden helm on her head. And, again, also scantily clad. Now, to give credit where credit is due, Eric's scantily clad. Chaos doesn't have a lot of clothes either. Like, it's not anything where, you know, I mean, the person who's probably the most dressed in this is Kaze and then Tor. And even then, Tor's brandishing his thighs and his calves, really.
Okay, so again, post-apocalyptic, they would be probably, everyone would be nude if it wasn't for censors.
Right.
Okay, all right.
Know, and
it's like Elder Scrolls where every single person, when you're picking, I think it was Daggerfall, where it was either Daggerfall or one of the spin-off games, where when you were picking your race, everyone was nude, and then they had to, like, add underwear in, like, a patch or whatever, I think, because... I remember LGR talking about it and being like, yeah, there's, genitalia. And then if you go on UESP, the unofficial Elder Scrolls pages, you'll see the screenshot has been edited, but it's still the official screenshot. So.
Oh, yeah. Okay. Anyway. Interesting. Yeah, this is a little different. I think in fighting games, you want to show off how strong your characters are. If in our society, for all men, it's the arms and it's the broad shoulders and it's their pecs. Yeah. And so for women, unfortunately, it's a lot of like lithe figureness, like
it's legs and abs and stuff like that to show tone and everything. I do have to say, just a little, since we're talking about sexuality in a way in terms of character design, that the Mortal Kombat series has definitely pivoted and turned a corner to be more believable and grounded while still being sexualized in a way.
Yeah.
So
yeah, it's interesting.
I like the new designs that they've come up with.
It's interesting to see how far we've come and how far we need to go. And I'll mention it. I wasn't planning on mentioning it in this show because, to be honest, Primal Rage is so ridiculous and campy anyway. It's
and
almost
a product of its time.
Yeah, and it's kind of hard to not do that. And also, the one thing I will give them credit for is, like, you could obviously that they were referencing, well, these people were from these parts of reclaimed Earth, but they don't try to overtly, like, reference or make an extreme caricature of any of the cultures that these people might have been, like,
that's surprising, yeah.
Like, I'll show you the pictures later, Mystic, and you let me know if I'm wrong, but it doesn't seem like there was any of that. They seem to be at least careful in the sense of, look, we're going to have these scantily clad fighters, but we're not going to have anything that's going to make minorities go.
Oh, if we want to do a game like that, there's no game. We never will do this game. But Human Killing Machine would be a great one to do if you want to do really bad stereotypes of minorities.
No, I don't think I want to. I don't think I want to go into that at all. So
it's not even it's a terrible, terrible game anyway. So we're not missing anything.
Yeah. For Slash Fang, the god that was to be revealed in this game, you have the Kung Fu star-inspired Zhao Ming. He's actually literally just got, like, orange Kung Fu fighter pants, and that's it, with this wild kind of, like, jet black hair that kind of almost wings out.
Oh, geez. Okay.
Yeah.
All right. I thought there was a Primal Rage 2. I had no idea it was this.
Yeah. Slash Fang is a saber-toothed tiger, god of the hunt. But we don't know much about it, and we don't know much about the story of this game per se. For that, I may have to read the book about this called Primal Rage Avatars. That is written by John Vornholt. Now, I quickly looked up what else Vornholt is known for, and Mystic, would you believe this guy is prolific in the universe of Star Trek, writing novels.
No, I could see that.
Including like Star Trek Next Generation Rogue Saucer, A Time to Die, Gem World, A Time to Be Born. Looks like he's also done the novelization of Nemesis. It's not the only universe he's worked in, obviously, but it's probably the one he's most prolific in.
So you're going to read, after you do Unreal, you're going to read Primal Rage Avatars?
If I can find it. I'd have to find it. It's very hard to get a copy of this book, but it's about the banishment of the gods by Necrosan and the avatars that were elevated from human worshippers in order to stop the alien threat of Necrosan to what is now referred to in the game as Neo-Earth. Apparently what Necrosan did was change the Earth again. So...
Okay.
Yeah. Plot twist. It turns out Necrosan is not of this Earth. He's an alien who is trying to possibly change it to take it over. So in a lot of the endings that you can find online for Primal Rage 2, it turns out he was trying to change it so that way his species could continue to live on it. And a lot of the other avatars essentially do things in order to prevent that. Including Tor, Armadan's guy, basically tries to keep an eye to be like, uh-oh, he kind of changed the way Earth is. Hopefully nothing survives. And actually in Tor's ending, there's a bunch of pods that fall from the sky and they all crack open and die. Because whatever Necrosan was trying to do is essentially foiled by Tor and Armadan. So, so that's essentially the biggest premise. But I have to find a book now because I have to read Primal Rage Avatars. Like, I have to now. Best thing about this is that Galloping Ghost, located outside of Chicago, helped revive one of the lost boards for the arcade fighter and helped the public realize this project that was scrapped so close to completion after Midway took over Atari.
Really? So this is within a short drive?
Yes, we can go, like right now. We don't even need quarters. We just pay and we go and we play all night. Right now. Let's go. So Galloping Ghosts, if you don't know, is actually out in Oak Brook right outside Chicago. It is a great arcade where you can basically pay to play all day. And we love it. And apparently, like in 2019, 2020, they found the board. And it's like so rare. Apparently what happened, according to Matt McMuscle's video on the What Happened series, is that Midway took over Atari from Time Warner and then just slowly stopped supporting the project. They already had Mortal Kombat and Killer Instinct, so essentially they decided to let the project die. And the lead on the project was really upset and ended up just forcing himself to be fired because he just didn't want to deal with that. Like, you should watch that if you like hearing about those development stories.
I got kind of sick of what happened after a while, but maybe. This
one is I think it's worth a listen because it's great to hear about what they were thinking.
I'm trying to find the book. It's not possible.
Yeah.
I may have to contact the author.
I don't know.
He's 71.
Oh, God. Do you think he still has a copy hidden somewhere with all the other books he's written? I don't think so. But that is what I have for Primal Rage. A ridiculously campy premise that is so satisfying for a fighting game. And if you get a chance to play it, whether on an emulator or in an arcade, I say play it. And if you get a chance to go to Galloping Ghost to experiencing it, if it's open and available.
That might be why I thought there was a sequel, because we've been to Galloping Ghost. I may have seen it.
We haven't been to Galloping Ghost since they got this board.
Really? Oh, I may have seen it online, though, because I did go to their website recently.
Yes. They famously have one of, like, the 4 boards that are out there.
Jeez, and there's probably no way to replicate that board or anything.
I don't.
I wonder if
think so
anyone's
easily.
I wonder if they've dumped a ROM of it. Like if anyone's dumped a ROM online.
There is one online actually.
Oh, nice,
and,
cool.
And yeah, so you can find it. I don't know if we'd be able to play that for the.
I'd have to dig into arcade emulation, which is a scary thing.
Yeah, I don't know how that would work, but we should be able to get a emulator for at least the original game, which is just it's so fun.
I mean, I know I
It's
have
so
the
ridiculous.
SNES version emulated,
Yeah.
at least. So
Right. I love this game, and I love it even more than I did growing up now, because just like the idea that they had this ridiculous premise for this world, and they were like gonna full tilt lean into it. I have to appreciate it when you just look at the absurd and you say, you know what, that's what we're doing. We're just gonna do it, and it's gonna be cool, and it's gonna be dinosaurs and King Kongs punching each other in the face unapologetically.
yeah, no, I'm looking forward to playing this.
Yeah. Well, I hope you like this episode, Mystic.
This was interesting. I'm still throwing it being completely blindsided. I had no idea you're going to dig into an obscure and so do you with the rediscovery of the sequel, do you think there's any chance for this becoming a commercial property again?
I don't think it's going to happen right now, but I think it could happen probably in the future. It depends on how much more momentum it gets. Right now, it's still kind of like a niche fan thing. There aren't, other than, people like Matt McMuscles who will really explore and deep dive into this stuff. I don't think there's a lot of people who really know about Primal Rage 2. I didn't know it was a thing until I started researching this episode. And the reason they did the comic was to get revved up for Primal Rage 2.
Right. But
They had sketches for the characters in the first comic. And then soon after that, Midway said, don't work on this ever again.
it's just so I'm just thinking right now, we live a short drive from Galloping Ghost.
Yeah.
We live a short drive from NetherRealm Studios.
Yes.
And nobody knows what their next game is.
You're just hoping? Are you hoping?
I think it's extremely unlikely.
It is.
But they've said, our next project will make sense. And it's something, and they've mentioned, I think someone's mentioned, it's not Mortal Kombat or Injustice. So I'm curious, like, they're known for fighting games. I can't see them branching out and it making sense. You know?
Yeah. They're not going to do the Killer Instinct version of Mario anytime soon. No. I don't see that. I don't see that happening.
But no, this has been a great one.
Well, I'm glad you got a better sense of how it's like for me on that side of the monitor.
I already have the next episode partially written, so.
Yeah, that's fair. Okay. Well, hopefully I will not be as mad at people like I was with Horizon Zero Dawn.
It's actually kind of the inverse of what happened here.
Oh my gosh.
I thought it'd be a much larger game, and it's much smaller than I thought.
Okay. Well, I'm willing to
So-
explore it, and hopefully you guys will catch us from that episode. Remember, the Thursday after
This releases.
we will be doing the live stream, but if you want to catch us on our off Thursdays,
We are currently playing Skies of Arcadia.
where we do voice acting.
Terrible, terrible voice acting.
Horrible. Atrocious. I watch voice actors for fun. You would think, after all the hours I've watched of Critical Role, I would have picked up something. I've picked up nothing. Anyway, thanks so much for joining us this time.
Thank you very much.
Catch you later. Bye.
Bye.